Hi everyone. Welcome back to
The Old Warlock.
the Old Warlock. I'm just having some coffee here because it's the morning time.
And somebody slept for like 15 hours last night.
Somebody else also slept for like 15 hours last night.
I got like 6.
He has issues sleeping sometimes because he's so excited to wake up and film the next day's videos.
Yes.
What are we talking about today?
Today we are going back to 1979 and we are going to be talking about a game aid that was published by TSR. They are the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons non-player character records and the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons permanent character record. Oh, no, sorry. The permanent character folder and adventure records. Cool stuff. We're going to take a closer look.
Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Boom, boom. So, welcome back.
Welcome back.
Which one should we talk about first, Jim?
You know,
Actually, before we do that, let's tell the backstory
yes,
of
let's do
how
that.
we actually got these.
Yes, I got a bunch of materials from our friend Brad. Brad runs a store called Game Masters in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And he's also the person who runs the Cheyenne Gaming Convention.
Which, if you've been paying attention, we've been to several times.
We like to go and
years.
cover that. And Brad, since he started his store, Game Masters, he has been kind of scouring the landscape to get cool things to sell in his store. And he has a lot of great stuff there. Yeah. But he sent me an email 10 days ago, 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Maybe. About a stack of old Dungeons & Dragons materials he picked up at the local library for $1 a piece. I traded Brad some things in exchange for these these early Dungeons & Dragons materials. Two of the things that came out of this trade were the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons non-player character records. And this thing's in darn good shape. And also the player character folder and adventure records.
Also
Again,
in excellent shape.
Never been used. I don't know who was giving these up. I'm figuring somebody was clearing out their basement and they got rid of their son's stuff, which is still hanging around in the basement. But anyway, I am the lucky beneficiary of getting these things. And what I wanted to do today, what did he do? What I really wanted to do is take a closer look at these. I mean, they may seem just like, okay, yeah, it's a tear out character record sheet, but the interesting thing about it is if you take a closer look at the character record sheets, they give you some insight into the way that the game was played, the way Dungeons & Dragons was played back in the late 1970s, just by the questions that they ask you to fill in on the character sheets.
And I have not looked at these questions of what is to be filled in on these character sheets.
I keep them in the dark all the time.
I'm going into this a little bit blind. But my prediction is that some of these questions that are being asked are actually going to be somewhat similar to how we end up playing the game. There's some striking similarities.
And that's what I found out. That's one of the things that I noticed. Some of the things that we put an emphasis on or a value on in our game is definitely reflected in this, which tells me in turn that we were playing the same way that people across the nation were playing at that time, or at least the way a lot of people were playing across the nation at that time. This is not to say that the way that we played back then is not still being played today in a variety of different RPGs. It's just interesting to me to see that this was something that was taking place very early in the development of the game. Anyway,
Yes.
I think we're going to go into these in order. And we will start with the permanent character folder and adventures record. This one right here. Again, published in 1979 by TSR. It has a really cool piece of artwork on it by Errol Otis. I'm sure that any of you old school D&D folks will be able to recognize that style of artwork. What this is, and let me just read the beginning of this, because D&D or TSR was trying to find ways to monetize Dungeons and Dragons in the 70s, as you would when you have a successful game. But let's just give the quote on when they're trying to hype this to the buyer. Look what's here. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons permanent character folder and adventure records, especially designed for use with Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. These two interlocking products have been designed to eliminate those major problems which commonly plague other character records, space, and durability. Organized into a special format, information is grouped together under specific and easy-to-identify sections, while the most vital and oft-consulted information is boxed with eye-catching, easy-to-find displays. So, let's get into this.
Let's.
Now, what happens is, when you bought this, this was the cover sheet that went around the outside. And it just gives you explanations about how to use the sheets on the inside, all right? When you have the actual character sheet itself, it came in two parts. There is the permanent character record. Now, this is a hard cardstock. It is almost like a small folder, okay? So you've got front and back, hard cardstock. And this is where you would put all your relevant information about your character. You know, pretty straight up stuff.
Sure.
And we're going to get into that in a little bit more detail. But then there are blue sheets inside that are adventure records. And so you would fill one of these sheets out every time your character got back from some sort of an adventure, and then this would be placed inside of your character record folder, for lack of a better term, in order to keep track of what it was you had been doing. And to me, this is a really good idea because we don't keep as good a records as we should.
Well, Billy
does. We have one player who joins us fairly regularly, and if I have a question about what happened, because we don't get to play as often as we would like.
Yeah, and sometimes there are a couple months gap in between.
Yeah, but the person that I can always refer to say, because a lot of stuff I have to make up on the fly, and I usually write things down, but occasionally the game is going really fast, and I'll forget to write down the name of so-and-so that I came up with on the spot. And so we have to turn to Billy to be able to do that. The cool thing, I think, that about a record sheet like this is that it impels you to write that. That's my word of the day, impels. Use it if you can. If you get the opportunity. It impels you to actually fill out that information. Yeah. If you have that sheet there waiting for you at the end of the night's adventuring or playing, you know that you've got to write all these things down. So let's get into the details of the folder and the adventure records. So to start off, and I'm going to scan this and I'm going to put a copy of it up on the screen. You've got your abilities. You start off with writing that down. Class, level, alignment, patron deities, race, religion, alignment of, ? But it has a place for all of your reaction adjustments, a la AD&D. So, if you have a dexterity reaction for 2 hit and armor class, it's got a place to write all that stuff down. It has a thing for vision, so if you have infravision or not, you can put that down.
Which we don't use.
Yeah, we do not use that. It has a space for movement. So, based on your strength, you can alter your movement to various things. So it's got heavy, loaded, and maximum encumbrance and how fast you can move in those situations. It's got a place for psionics, which we do not use. Well, kind of, yeah. We don't use it to the extent that AD&D says you should use it.
Set,
it's got spaces for weapon proficiency, combat adjustments for all of the different weapons that you use. It's got a place where you can, and I like this because weapon adjustments versus armor class, which a lot of people don't use. I do use that out of the player's handbook, where you go through and a halberd has a plus against certain types of armor class. There's a lot of variation, but it does help you in certain situations. There's a place to write all that in. Then it's got a space for your hit points, your constitution adjustment for hit points, etc. Then it has a nice spot here for hit points gained per level. Now, one of the things that we've had people complain about when we talk about life-draining abilities of undead, we did a video on that quite a while back.
Universally positive response.
But there were a couple of people who, I think that the biggest thing that people were complaining about was that it was hard for record keeping, which I don't really follow too closely because. But anyway, if you did have problems with that, well, here because when you get hit for level drain. You lose hit points based on your previous whatever your current level is and what the hit points were for that level.
Those are removed going backwards.
So this is an easy way to write. It's got hit points gained per level. You just write in how many hit points you got per level. So the math is.
And you lose 2, then it's right there.
Yeah,
you know
it's very straightforward. It's got a section here for scarring and maiming, and you have to write. You can write. You don't have to, but you can write in the injury that gave you the scar or the maiming. The date that it happened, it's got a spot for an explanation as to how that took place, which is really cool. What the injury was. Oh, another one for injuries. And you can write in the date, and you can put the explanation for that as well.
Leg chopped off.
Yeah, leg removed, that kind of thing. Then you get to other things. Description. So birthday, sex, height, weight, color of hair, color of eyes, social class, standing, if any, social class, if any, general appearance, distinguishing marks, mannerisms. Then, for some reason, thieving skill adjustments are down at the very bottom. I'm not quite sure why that's there, but maybe that's the only place they could fit it in.
Well, the first thing I would like to say before we move on to
go ahead.
is looking at this, and you guys can go back and pull it up, the still that we put up a minute ago. There is a form of this that you found, I think, on Drive-Thru-RPG.
No, it was on Dragon's Foot.
It was on Dragon's Foot, like a decade and a half ago at this point, that follows basically this exact same structure, but was made very recently.
Well, yeah, relatively
recently.
Right.
And I just think it's interesting because it even looks the same. The setup is the same. Everything is pretty much exactly the same. I mean, there are a few things that have been removed, like psionics isn't on there. I'm sure we could find a version of this that I'm talking about and put that up there. They're very, very similar. And it's interesting to see how even, when this was created by the people who made the game, it works. And so it's still used and still pushed forward for people who play these original versions of the game. I just think that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think
persisted.
And I think that one of the things that we're also saying with this is that if you're interested in this type of a character sheet, go to Dragon's Foot, which has so much cool stuff on it. Yeah. And, they've got a load of different character sheets, and I think you can find one, like Alexander was saying, that's very, very similar to this.
Very similar to this one.
They may even have this exact same one. I don't know at this point. But one of the other things, I'll point this out as well, something they recommend in the instructions is they've got hole punches here for putting this into a 3-ring binder, which is a really good idea, just to keep the papers nice and tidy. Anyway, on the inside, I love this. There are places where you can put your family symbol, sign, or blazon. There's a spot for your character sketch, and I would love to see some of the some of the character sketches from back in the day that people put into there. Then you have a place for your business symbol, sign, or blazon, which I think is really cool. There's a place for parentage, family, brief family history, family allies, family land holdings or businesses, family foes, your patron, if you have a patron, and conditions of patronage. Then there are your weaknesses and fears, your desires and loves, your hatreds and foes, and then locales frequented, frequented and residences. So you put down where, and then you have notes for that. Then you have a whole big section here. Again, we're looking here, and I'll put this back up on the screen. You have a big section here for relations and followers. And you can write down all the people you've bumped into, which I think is really good because I usually just have that scribbled onto my character sheet someplace where it'll fit.
You just have to remember where that is.
Exactly.
As you add paper, don't forget where you put it.
But if you had this to put, those notes into at the end of the game day, the next time you played, it would be a real beneficial thing. And the relations and followers, name, relation, class, position, level, race, sex, birth date, location, and notes. Yeah. Then on the back, they have another section where you can write in, it's got spells and spell books, weapons and armor, magic items, treasure, properties owned, animal companions, and other possessions. So essentially this is just that inventory of stuff that we all have, written down on the sides of on the back side of the character sheet.
Slowly making its way in
as
you've lost track and gone faster.
Another thing that I really like in this is there's a section called for debts and obligations.
Ooh, I like that.
And we'll get into that in the non-player character sheets in a second, because debts and obligations, I think, are underutilized in terms of story drivers.
Yeah.
We use them a lot. It's something that's very important, and I think that that can be one of the more interesting components of a campaign.
Yeah.
Is who you have debt to, who is in debt to you, who you are in debt to, and then obligations you have to fulfill things, favors or whatever else. I think those are really important things. And then there's a spot for experience, investments, and then another area here for your residence, and then there's a place for research. And I'm assuming that could be for research into magic spells.
Sure.
It could be research into anything. I really like the fact that that's in here. Next, under research, it has a place for the topic, the investment that you made in researching that particular topic, the time you spent researching that topic, and then the success date. So I think those are all really cool.
Those are interesting.
And then, to carry on, here on the back... Oh, yeah. Here on the back, highlights of characters' life and previous adventures. Date, details of event, titles granted, crimes accused of, character traits, favorite tactics, and down at the very bottom, the last will and testament. I blank, do hereby, blank, 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 date and signature. So,
they know you're going to die.
They know you're going to be buying it here at some point.
Yeah.
So... let's take a closer look at the inside. These are the adventure records. And as I said, these were set up to, you fill this out at the end of the adventure, and then you tear it out and you put it inside of your folder. This is good too. Name, obviously. The days, turns elapsed, in a sense, in the particular adventure. Class, level, race, alignment, movement base, things like that. Here's the thing though. Who is your employer? How did you get your payment? Or what was your payment? The purpose of you working for your employer. Fellow adventurers. It's got name, place for basically all of their pertinent information. The treasure policy, which I really like. You've got that sorted out ahead of time. This is a place where you can write it down so there's no saying, no, we talked about this was how we were going to divvy up the fines. There is appearance and disguise that you had in this particular adventure. And then there are all of the various, here are my abilities, here are the
basic character sheets.
The conditions that I had, constitution adjustment, magic adjustment, things like that. There's places for pummeling, places for grappling, places for overbearing. Then there's a place for turning undead if you're a cleric. Then they have a place up here where, we've always got this written scattered all over the place. Coins carried, or cash carried. Coins, other.
That's something that I personally lose track of all the time, is actually keeping a itemized list of what I have spent my money definitively on, where it is, different things like that. One of my characters is currently very, very wealthy, but he doesn't know where a lot of his gold is being stored. So it's problematic.
And whether or not he'll ever end up finding it again is
a source of great fury to me and my family.
Yes. Then you can go down, and there are places where, to get to the level of detail, and we don't get this far into this level of detail. They're under carrying capacity. What are you carrying on the left side of your body? What are you carrying in the center or on the back of your body? And what are you carrying on the right side of your body? Then you have their followers. A place to list a few of those. Then you have notes for treasure acquired, monsters overcome, and other, and then the experience points that you had at the beginning, treasure and combat, and other experience points gained, and then the total down below that. On the back of this same sheet, this adventure record, highlights of the adventure, special information acquired, very cool to me, because again, that's something that is very important to us. Really, the acquisition of information in our campaign is much more important than anything else you're going to do. Non-player characters of note, another very important thing. Then it has a really large section here for narrative. So you can write down what this adventure was all about. Special treasures acquired, cool. Debts incurred, which again, I think really comes into things. Who the creditor was, what the terms of the credit given are or were. Payment of hirelings, which I like that. Here's how much money I paid to the hirelings, which again is a cool record. 10 years after the fact, in real time, it would be cool to go back and remember, there was that guy, and here's what he ended up taking. It's just part of that reminiscence about the adventure. And then it finishes off with Comrades Lost. Name, cause, they've got 10 sections on that. So you're going to be losing. They expected you to lose characters at that time. Anyway, this is a really cool thing. And again, like I was saying at the beginning, it kind of reinforces the way that we play the game. It points out a lot of the expectations of loss, but also how important information is and how important building relationships with not other player characters, but with non-player characters, and understanding your place in the world. Yeah. All of that is set up to be recorded in these character folder, the permanent character folder, and the adventure records. To me, it's just really cool.
No, it is cool because a lot of the way that we play the game is it's almost like solving a mystery in a way.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
It's not hard-boiled potato detective kind of mystery solving, but like you have to go and find information, like he's been saying, and you have to figure out clues, where to go next, and it's not difficult to do as long as you think your way through it. And they're just like, okay, I go to the library is usually the default start to a lot of these things.
Or the archives, or whatever. Yeah.
But having that kind of stuff, readily available to write down, because I think that it's so easy to get swept up in the game that's being played and what's going on. You don't care about writing it down. You're like, I want to move on to the next thing and do something else cool.
Or we're under attack. We have a 2-hour battle we've got to get through in order to finish this. And
write down how many people you killed, or how many things you killed, or how many of your people were killed, or anything like that. And especially, I really do think that I think this is kind of a universal issue, writing down the value of the things that you have. Yeah. Even if it's not necessarily just keeping track of how much gold you have on you, which is difficult, because especially once you get to higher levels and you do start to amass some wealth, keeping track of those smaller purchases is difficult, but also just keeping track of the stuff that you own. What's the term? Net worth? Your net worth in the game. What all does your character have? So it's just great to have a little area in which to keep track of that stuff. I would say go out and buy one, but I don't think that these are readily for sale anymore.
I don't know. I was wondering if these had been reprinted on Drive-Thru-RPG or something like that. I really don't know. I haven't looked. But if you're interested in just kind of that, I don't know, it's almost like an outline for playstyle in 1979. And if you're interested in seeing more about that, look up these Advanced Dungeons & Dragons permanent character folder and adventure records. Yeah. And if I can find some, by the time I publish this video, if I can find a location to download PDFs of this or something, if they're available, I'm not going to encourage you to do anything illegal.
That would be wrong.
That would be a bad thing. But if they are out there somewhere for download,
don't go get them.
Don't go and download them.
Legal disclaimer from the Old Warlock.
Don't go and download them.
Do not go and do this.
But you never know, they might be out there. So I'll let you know if I can find them.
A lot of them probably are. And again, if these ones aren't, there's very, very similar stuff available on Dragon's Foot that you can go and get and download.
But let's move on to the non-player character record.
Well, this video has been going for a while.
How long has this video been going?
I'm thinking somewhere around 20 minutes, 25 minutes we've been talking here. Should we keep going, or should we split this into a second video?
Let's finish.
Just finish it up? All right, you guys are in for a long one today. Buckle up.
So, the other thing that I got from our friend Brad is, like I said, the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons non-player character records. And this is equally cool. Quickly, I'll read the intro. At last, record sheets for non-player characters. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons non-player character records are especially designed for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. No longer will the DM need to worry about lack of continuity or lost records on non-player characters, for these sheets provide the DM with easy-to-store records of the many non-player personalities which populate his or her campaign. So, let's take a look at these. And these are cool. They are actually not full sheets. What they do is there's a perforation that runs down the middle of these. So each of your non-player characters is going to get one of these orange sheets. Right, if you flip them over, so you'll have 1-2 pages, but when you flip it over, it's reversed. So you get front and back on each one of these half sheets. These are really interesting because, again, I'm sure that people back in the day used these as much or filled in as much or as little of these as was necessary for their game. But it runs through the same thing on the front side. Talks about basically what the character has in terms of abilities, what their combat skills are, special attacks, special defenses, tactics. Then they get down to, in these, age, magical age, sex, hair, eyes, height, weight, general appearance, social class, if any, standing, if any, weight, hatred, enemies, desires, love. So it's very similar to the other one, but the magical age is a little bit of a different thing. Places for spells, debts, obligations, which again, very important, especially with your non-player characters, because with the way we play it, the non-player characters and their issues in their lives have a huge impact very often have a huge impact on
their contribution to whatever the player characters are doing.
Exactly.
They don't exist just to serve the player characters. They have their own agendas.
That's exactly what it is. And that makes for really interesting non-player characters.
Yeah.
Now, they've subdivided things out a little bit here. They have what their wages are expected to be. Plus, they have their wealth in copper, silver, electrum, gold, platinum, gold, gold jewels, etc. Then they have their compatriots. So who they hang out with, that's also listed on here, which is really interesting. The locales frequented by them, their employment record is also listed on here. So you can put that down, and then when the players are wondering, well, where has this person worked before? Yeah. You've got a place for all that stuff to be ready to give to them. So it's kind of a straight up thing there, but what I wanted to do is they give you a sample in this on the inside back cover. So I thought that we would just quickly take a look at that and see how they filled this out. So they have a place for the name of the campaign that these non-player characters would be present in.
We don't really name campaigns.
We don't. I played Enclave with Robbie the other day. He definitely goes in and names all of his campaigns. But so this one, in this example, this was from the Darrican campaign. Darrican campaign number 26. These guys were playing some serious games. It's got a place for their name, a place for this non-player character's current employer. So they're not necessarily just out there looking for work. Maybe you have to go and hire them from somebody else. In this case, the non-player character, race, they're a doppelganger, which is really cool to me.
Those are so fun.
They are.
Not at all frustrating.
Not at all. But then they have all the other things that they are, their magical resistance, their sleep and charm spells, their magical resistance to, so immunities to sleep and charm spells. So they really go into, they've actually taken a monster and dropped it into the non-player character sheet, which I get because it's a doppelganger and it's
basically it functions the same way.
Right. I love this. Morale, it has a line through there, but then loyalty and obedience, it has all phony.
There's a word you don't hear too often.
Phony, I love that term. Yeah, that's a great term. Listening, nothing special. Then it talks about languages common, speaks common, and any within ESP range. But then it goes through and just talks about, it gives the place for all the hit points, the weapons that they use, special abilities, ESP, alter appearance to any humanoid. And then it gives a place for all of the different physical characteristics, but it also has hatred/enemies, all humans. Treasures, loves, treasure, and flesh. So, but one of the cool things one of the things that I really like about this non-player character sheet, and this is relevant to this as opposed to a player character sheet. I get it. Facts and traits there's a little places for a little more in-depth description on this. So possessions, scant. Sanity, neurotic. Tendencies, variable. Personality, variable. Disposition, variable. Intellect, scheming. Nature, vengeful. Thrift, mean, as in, tight-fisted.
Average. Oh.
No. Well, you're right, but that's in this case it means, tight-fisted. Materialism, avaricious.
Wow.
Energy, energetic. Morals, amoral. Honesty, deceitful. Bravery, cowardly. Piety, irreligious. Interests, none. So it gives you a really good series of traits that you can put in there and get a good mental picture for yourself as the DM running the game. it's a real quick look at this. You might have developed this particular character 3 months ago. Boom, you look at it, and there's everything that you remember, that you can suddenly remember putting down 3 months ago because you've got these little tiny notes in here that give you a mental note.
Because it's easy to forget some of this stuff. So it's nice just to have it right there.
I like this at the very end. Notes has taken the precaution to don Thorvald's armor. So he's put on Thorvald's armor, this is the person that he is impersonating, imitating a hireling fighter until he gets a sure chance to destroy and to take the place of Athelstan, who is a player character. Anyway, really cool things. I never got the chance to use these back in the day. I did not even know they existed back in the day. But fun stuff. Again, non-player character records for D&D and player character folder and adventure records for Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. Came out in 1979. Go out and see if you can find them. If I can find them, I will put a link to them down below.
And they're very, very cool. Not only because they're like neat ways to play the game and they're important things to have, but they're just cool parts of D&D history as well.
That's really why I picked them up was... and I will probably photocopy these and I will end up using them. But just to have them as part of my collection is a neat thing. And thanks to Brad down at Game Masters for getting in touch with me and making me such a great trade to get a hold of these because he knows that I love this stuff. Anyway, that's all we've got. Advanced Dungeons & Dragons, non-player character records, and player character folder and adventure records. Woohoo! No news at this point other than to say thank you to our Patreon subscribers.
You guys, thebomb.com.
You guys are great.
Yeah.
I will be sending out a new link here fairly soon, or a new series of links to make sure that you get all the back content for the videos that we've made for our Patreon subscribers, because some of the more recent subscribers, I don't know if they have access to it. I don't think
they've gone back through.
So I'm going to just go back and make a whole list and send it out to make sure that everybody has the links to that content.
If you're interested in joining, the link for that is down below in the description. Go ahead and check it out. If not, no worries. Stick around. Hang out.
That's all I've got.
That's all I've got too.
I'm Jim.
I'm Alex.
Keep it short on free.
Bye.